Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer online action. I'm going to be taking the Beastmen. We're facing up against a Norsca opponent. So historically, this has been a pretty tough matchup for the Beastmen. Norsca is one of the better counters to them. The Beastmen honestly have quite a few tough matchups. But, we'll see what we can do here. My opponent and I were chatting before the game, and we had just played a game previous to this, and my opponent admitted he didn't think he was up to my skill level. So I decided to go with a more challenging pick, just to challenge myself, and, see what we could do here. So we'll go ahead and talk through the build. I've got a front line of Ungor Herd, just for some nice, cheap, almost meat shield tier infantry. We've got two Ungor Spearman Herd on each flank, so going for more of a Beastman Horde style build. To back them up, we've got the Koroks Man Rippers, of course, very cost-effective unit, good against Norsca. Morghur the Shadow Gave, of course. We've got a Gorbel as well, and a unit of Minotaurs with great weapons. So I don't normally like to bring Minotaurs, just because they have relatively low armor. They're not super sustainable, and they are quite expensive. But against the, the Norskins, you got to worry about mammoths, skin wolves, potentially other, large, high-value units. So the anti-large armor piercing of the Minotaurs with great weapons can help deal with those. We've also got the Butchers of Kalkengard. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Minotaurs, but these guys have regenerate. They do have a shield, so they can block some missiles. Armor piercing. They also have, other good stats. The Fear and Terror is very strong as well. So that's pretty much it for my forces. No Centaurs in this particular build, just straight up, mostly a huge infantry blob. But for my opponent's forces, he's got a main line here of marauders with great weapons, which, understandable, you typically will see Bestigor Herd in this matchup. We do have the Iceborne Marauders Regiment of Renown here in the center as well. These guys are immune to psychology, which is nice. However, they do only have 15 armor, and, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of them. I don't think they're super cost-effective for their price. But, we'll see. He's also got one unit of Marauder Hunters here in the center, with one unit of Marauder Hunters with Javelins on each flank, backed up by two Marauder Spearmen, so nice deployment. Over here, he's got Vanguard deployed to the Maws of Savagery, Skinwolf, and two Skinwolf Werekin for some anti-large armor-piercing mobile force. Very good stuff. If I had one critique for this build, I would say that there's no Berserkers, and this unit of Marauder Hunters with the throwing axes is going to be pretty much useless. I would pretty much never bring these guys in any case. Their range is just absolute garbage, only 65. And, for the price, you can bring the Marauder Hunters with Javelins, which are much better against the Beastmen, in my opinion. You typically don't have to worry about too much armor with the Beastmen. Again, Bestigor Herd are heavily armored, but that's pretty much the only unit they'll really bring that has heavy armor. So, in general, I would say you could cheap out on these Marauders, go down, the Marauders with great weapons, go down to regular Marauders, and then, cut these Icehorn Marauders. If you did 4 regular Marauders and cut these guys, then you would have some money to bring some Berserkers out on the flanks, and the Berserkers would pretty much tear through all of the infantry I have. Then you could use the Javelins to help take down the Minotaurs, as well as the Spears, and, use this outflanking force to kind of compromise my flank and get in on these archers and different things. So, since my opponent said he was relatively new, I just thought I'd give a little bit of, critique and maybe some different tips and things, just for himself if he's watching. I mean, I doubt it, but if for anyone else who's newer to the game and is wondering maybe how to build things, against the Beastmen, you definitely want to bring Berserkers. They can pretty much carve through, even like Bestigor. Because of Bestigor have relatively low melee defense, they'll be able to trade fairly cost effectively there. So we'll go ahead and kick things into full speed here. My opponent's Lord is actually Wolfred the Wanderer on a horse here, and he's got a Famir Balefine Lore of Shadows. Probably a mistake not deploying these with the main army here, but he will rush them up shortly. So he's bringing this flanking force around. I'm going to be responding by just holding these 2 spears here in reserve, as well as this unit of Ungor Raiders here. So we're just pushing up to this ridge so we can get a more favorable engagement. That way my opponent's not attacking downhill towards me. The hill advantage isn't as big in this game as it is in other Total War games, but it's definitely still there. So you want to try and, take the high ground, as Anakin sadly found out. The high ground's very, very important for an engagement, so you definitely want to try and, pull forward there. So we're just going to be just fairly straightforward. Beastmen versus Norsca, so you expect it's just going to be an infantry rush. So we'll go ahead and get some close-up cinematic action as these two lines collide. And honestly, the Ungor Herd will trade fairly cost-effectively here. They do take quite a bit of shock damage on the charge there due to their lower charge bonus. But, they have decent combat stats at 27 attack and 25 defense. with 27 weapon strength, so they will be able to do quite a bit of damage in return to these marauders with great weapons here. In the center, we did punch through very heavily with the Gorble and all the Minotaurs, and we're immediately getting back onto these spears and getting back onto the, the Marauder Hunters with the throwing axes, trying to keep them from firing. My opponent doing a good job of turning these Marauder Javelins here to fire into the Minotaurs. However, we did break through with the Terror from the Butchers of Kalkengard. It did rout off some of these Marauders with great weapons here, allowing the Ungor herd to push through. We did get my opponent got a Sea Fang there. It wasn't overly effective, but did get a little bit of work done on those Ungor herd. Here in the back, he's having a pretty tough time. He has brought Wulfric the Wanderer around, dropped Hunter of Champions on the Gorble, which is very good. However, Wulfric the Wanderer still doesn't want to stay and fight here in a prolonged engagement. We've also dropped a Spirit Leech on him from my Death Shaman and this Familiar Balefiend. Let's actually see what spells he's got. Pit of Shades, looks like Enfeebling Foe. Yep, and Milkos Mystifying Miasma. So interesting. We'll see if we can watch any of those pop off here. Over here, the Ungor Spearman herd are actually trading. You know, they're losing somewhat, but they're trading cost effectively just because they're so cheap. They're able to do a bit of damage to the Marauders with great weapons, even though that's not necessarily a fight they were designed for. We did get a very nice Pit of Shades here. It does suck up a lot of these, Korok's Man Rippers and some of these other troops. So it did get a few of his own, Marauders with spears, but definitely getting a lot of those Korok's Man Rippers especially is a very high value unit, so probably a good play there. I did pull away my mobile force just to get onto these Marauders with javelins because they were doing quite a bit of damage to the, the Minotaurs, which is a very expensive unit, so we need to get on them. Able to terror rout them off almost instantly with the Butchers of Kalkengard, so very good stuff there. You can see the Skinwolf force took a little bit too wide of a flank here and charged straight into some spears, so they're going to get mucked up here, and I won't be able to trade super effectively there. We're going to bring this mobile force of Minotaurs back to help deal with them. One of them does get a bit distracted there, routing off the, the Marauders with great weapons, but they'll get refocused back shortly. The Korok's Man Ripper's in here now, doing anti-large armor-piercing damage to Wulfric. Is definitely not where he wants to be. He's going to be taking quite a bit of damage in this fight, and you can see his leadership is already wavering. Morghur over here is just wrapping up these Marauder Spearmen and the Marauders with great weapons over on this flank, so at that, it's going to be game. So, good game to my opponent. Definitely enjoyed playing that. Again, trying to help new players improve. This build has some good elements, but I would definitely change a few things. Like I said, if you cheaped out on these Marauders with great weapons, as well as cutting these Icehorn Marauders, you can bring 4 regular Marauders, and then, cut these Marauder Hunters, and then bring... let's see, you could also probably stand with cutting one of these Werekin just for some more troop density. Then you could bring a whole bunch of Berserkers to be on the flanks. You've got the center with the regular Marauders. Wulfric's a decent choice here, but Throg can be very tough to deal with for the Beastmen, so I'd maybe recommend bringing him instead. Other than that, though, I really like the pick of the Marauder Hunters with the Javelins. The Maws of Savagery combined with the Skinwolf Werekin are very powerful and tough for the Beastmen to deal with. Unfortunately, they just weren't where they needed to be at the right time. Marauder Spearmen, good pick against the Beastmen as well, because, Centaurs and Minotaurs and other, high-value large units are definitely to be expected. Same with these Javelins. Just otherwise I would change a little bit of the infantry composition just to, get less armor piercing and more unit models and more, more DPS, I guess. So, very good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that. Sure enjoyed playing it. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe, and we will see you all next time.